Okay, we are going to get started. So thank you everybody for joining and welcome to the first part of our year-end webinar series. And what we've decided to do is to give you three different bite-sized pieces of our Strongpoint solution for both Salesforce and NetSuite. Today, we are covering automated system documentation for the NetSuite platform. So in terms of agenda for the day, you'll have to listen to me speak for just a few minutes. I'll walk through a couple slides for those of you who aren't familiar with Strongpoint, just to give you a very quick overview of kind of what we do and what our system documentation tool set is all about. From there, I'll pass it over to Garnet Bellick, who is our solution specialist on the line today. And Garnet will spend about 15-20 minutes or so walking you through a quick overview of our documentation tool set. And he'll then pass it back over to me for a quick summary and wrap up, and we'll save time for any questions that anybody might have. For those that aren't familiar with us, as I said, here at Strongpoint, our mission is to provide our clients with stress-free system documentation, change management, and compliance. And today being the first part of our three-part webinar series, we're going to cover our stress-free documentation tool set. Now, let's unpack that a little bit. So system documentation, automated documentation, what do those mean? So when we launch our tool in your environment, very little resources required on your side. This is a bundle that you would install in your NetSuite system. And with about 20 or 30 minutes of your time, you can launch it, wait about 3 to 5 business days or so, and at the end of that time, you will have the best documentation that you could even imagine. And so that means a summary of every customization, all of your critical settings and user preferences, your user roles and their assignments, and then the secret sauce, if you will, is that we then take all of that great information and connect all of the pieces and show you what interdependencies exist among all of your customizations. And that gives you a very good idea of, what depends on what, or in another way to put it, if I change this, what will break, or what could it impact? And then one of the themes that you hear throughout this webinar and anytime that you work with us is that it's not just about system documentation, it's about what you do with that information now that you have it. And so some of the things that Garnet will cover today and that you'll see more of in the next 2 webinars is things like our cleanup and optimization tools. So with that, that's just a quick intro. I will pass it over to Garnet now so that he can walk you through a quick product demonstration.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar on automated documentation of NetSuite through Strongpoint. So just want to say, let's talk a little bit about how we got to this position right now. So what is the problem that NetSuite administrators and directors of IT are facing? Basically, as instances get more and more complicated, more and more customized, more and more scripted, they become infinitely more complex. We can see instances all the time with, 15,000 customizations and 70,000 dependencies between all of those objects. It ultimately becomes impossible to maintain and manage those with manual processes, with paper and pen, with Excel, with any other system node. So why not automate it? And that's exactly what Strongpoint does. So if we were, thinking about coming in a week ago, we'll just install a bundle into NetSuite. We're native to NetSuite once again, so your data stays nice and safe and secure in NetSuite. And then basically with about an hour and a half of setup time, we run the indexing, we run the scanner, we run all the dependencies between objects, and then what you have on your screen is the end result. So automated documentation that's created automatically and maintained continuously. And so these aren't just, a list of actual items, they are fully functioning records. So let's just click on any one of these, and then we'll have a look to see what the end result is. So we just simply select it, and then right away, Strongpoint shows us what it's connected to. So what are the searches, or the reforms, or the reports, or the data sources that are being used and are impacting this particular customization. So the left-hand side here is if I change this, the middle part is what might break. And so beyond that, we want to have be giving you more information about what your team needs to resolve instance issues rapidly and efficiently, but more importantly, to avoid them to begin with. So if we select on any one of these selections, we get what's called a customization record. And if we open that, What this is essentially a warehouse of information for all of the information that your team is going to need to, again, be nimble as you develop and grow. So, obviously we're going to give you, what the name of the customization is, who it was created by, what the actual script idea is and all that information. But even more importantly is information like info on scripting, on effective searches, on what forms, what processes is this being used in. Improvement has to do with cleanup, workflows, notes on workflows, data sources, and importantly, change log. What's the current version? What's the previous version? What's the version from 5 months ago? Who changed it? What, where, and why? So again, you want to give your team the ability to continuously manage and develop at the speed of your business without getting slowed down by all the continuous research of investigating every single dependency between objects, because we automatically do that for you. So, this is a search that we're looking at. And in this example, it's pretty straightforward. We can see that there are some customizations on the filters that are being used. We can see the search fields that are maintained. So, if I want to clean this up or delete it or modify it, we can have a look at the metadata. We can see that this was being used by Alex Wolf, who's no longer with the firm, and it hasn't been used for quite some time now. So obviously this is something that can be cleaned up just like that, risk-free and very efficiently. And so, does that make sense to everyone? And again, using this as a tool day in and day out to be much more efficient with your development and your customizations, as well as to, materially avoid risk. So that particular example that we were looking at was a pretty simple one, pretty straightforward. So let's look at one that's slightly more complex. So this particular customization is used in these forms here and this workflow. And if we click on the workflow, again, we're given all the dependencies between these objects here. So we can see that it's a scripted object, that there's searches that are relevant, and that there's additional sources in use. And so what you might be thinking to yourself is, okay, workflow, it's scripted. The largest amount of risk is probably in the script. And, that may be true. So obviously if we have the classical, save versus save as, or we have an incorrect, bit of work done on the script, you typically have like a very obvious change in functionality. So a loss of automation, blank field, blank form, an issue that's glaring. But what's equally important in this scenario is this particular save search. So all the finance people that are in the crowd today, you might want to think about what your CFO is going through in terms of maintaining the integrity of his financial data. So if this save search was acting as a filter and filtering data going into the workflow, which of course would change the data going out of the workflow, and the end result was either your period close numbers or some aspect of your revenue recognition or compensation to your sales team, that's the type of information that is crucial to have fully protected. And with Strongpoint, this can be viewed as a continuous level of insurance. If this is a financial object, it can be deemed as material. We can have a higher level of tracking and therefore a continuous level of safety. So I just want to make sure that makes sense to everyone. And obviously, if you have any questions, you can come on in at the end and we'll resolve those for you towards the end of the call. So again, looking at the actual record that Strongpoint creates as a repository of information for you to store all the information that you need about your customizations is crucial. So we're going into the workflow now, and obviously we notice that there's some scripting here, so we get a direct link to the scripting aspect. And then when we go to the scripting tab within the script, we can see all of the information that Strongpoint has parsed automatically from your instance and brought together in one location. So what are the script comments? What are the affected script fields? What are the API calls? What are the number of daily script executions? So again, giving you the ability to develop and proceed at the speed of your business, not get slowed down by the constant need to research and review risk. We do that all automatically for you and basically update it continuously. So it really is in the background protecting you and your team. A very powerful tool that gives the leverage of every single member of your NetSuite admin team, the strength of multiple members because of the efficiency. Okay, so our base functionality is more than just the automated documentation, which of course is used to manage and mitigate risk. So on top of that, we give you the ability to manage your scripts very efficiently, as well as clean up your instance. So let's talk a little bit about script management. So script management gives you the ability to basically tag all of your scripts, track them continuously, and give you the ability to see what your utilization is like, error reports, yesterday's errors, release scripts that are in debug status, last run date, active script deployments that do not have audit logs. So again, the ability to optimize your instance by making sure that your scripts are operating exactly how you anticipated. So one example of that is that we had one of our clients that was a Strongpoint client, and they were using our script management to review their script functionality. And what they found was that one of their scripts was running literally 140,000 times a day. And their business needs were nowhere near that level to have that level of script firing. So what we were just able to do with the power of our entity diagram, review all the dependencies between objects, and what we discovered was that, to make a complicated story a little simple, we had field A being scripted to field B, and then that was done by the original implementation. And then down the road, it was either a partner or perhaps a vendor came in and scripted back in the other direction, B back to A. So the thing was running in circles all day long. And so when you remove that flaw, have the scripts running the way they're supposed to be running, it basically resolved the issue, but most importantly, improve the performance of their NetSuite and their business processes. That's all we want is, right, the ability to optimize and manage the functioning of our NetSuite in the most efficient way possible. So on top of script management, we have the ability to do cleanup. And so with cleanup, there's obviously a number of different ways that we can take you through. So we, of course, follow ITGC best practices in terms of our recommendations. We have more than 400 installs that we're supporting with as we go. But, whether it be things like, a full status view of your cleanup situations, unused customizations, unused scripts, inactive owners, customizations with no related process, cleanup status awaiting info, all these things that your team needs to run as efficiently as possible. So to look at one of these reports, for example, we're looking at the Strongpoint unused customizations report. It basically gives you a working list of the work that you need to do and what the status is. So, obviously the name of the customization, the type, the parent, the complexity, and, we make it really simple for your team. So we give you, a very simple color coding of, red, this is complex, watch out, orange, investigation required, green, safe to delete, and yellow, probably safe to delete. Now your team obviously still has to do the cleanup, but why not do it in an organized, methodical, ITGC best practices sort of manner where that the work that you're doing, you're not retracing the steps that you've done before, and your team is acting as efficiently and effectively as possible. So again, that's the core of our automated documentation. Again, knowing all of your customizations and the dependencies between all objects. If I change something, what might break, giving you the power to really develop and grow and to manage risk as you do so. So obviously we can't take questions right now, but I'll turn the call back to Paul. He'll finish off with a little chat and then we'll have room for calls at the end.
Thank you, Garnet. So, I know that was a very quick overview, but I hope it did give you a good understanding of our system documentation tools and how you can use them, not only to get a better understanding of how your system works, but also how you can be a little bit more efficient in how you manage it going forward. But as a wrap up, I thought what I would quickly do is just kind of talk about what we learned today. And so first of all, how do you automate the documentation of all of your customizations? And not only is it important from a process perspective in terms of, how do we install it, how long does it take, what resources are required, but then how do you actually navigate through the tools? So install is extremely straightforward. We'll get you up and running with only about 20 or 30 minutes of your involvement. It'll run in the background for 3 to 5 business days. And then in that amount of time and with that level of investment on your part, you've got the best system documentation that you could imagine. And in terms of how do you use the tools and how do you navigate through them, it's basically as straightforward as could be, because you're now almost trained on it. You've seen how to use the tools. And there's really not much more to it from a training perspective than that. So the second point here is, how can we as an organization proactively avoid disruptions by knowing all the dependencies of the customizations? And we've got a few different ways to do that, which you'll see in the intelligent change management section. But even just in what you saw today, by being able to click through that ERD diagram and understand, what depends on what, and if I change this, what could break, you can get ahead of the game by doing all of those steps proactively. And rather than taking hours, days, or even for some organization weeks to do all of that appropriate due diligence, you can have it done in a matter of minutes, maybe in a matter of hours. And with Strongpoint in place, you can do it with 100% confidence that you have actually crossed all of your T's and dotted all of your I's. And the third point here is, how can we clean and optimize our accounts with confidence? And this is always an interesting one, because many of our customers don't buy our tool set intending to do cleanup and optimization. Some do, but most of them, that's not their primary goal. But what we always see is they then come back to us a few quarters down the road, maybe when they're starting a new fiscal year, and this ends up being on their list of priorities for a new year of, what can we do to improve the way that we are using our system? And our tools highlight the low-hanging fruit for you, so that these are now projects that you can do quickly, effectively, and again with confidence, knowing that you've done the appropriate levels of due diligence, and that you're not going to delete something that's touching something that you completely forgot about, and that you're not going to have to go and put out fires. So that really does bring to an end the automated documentation portion. We do have 2 more webinars just like this, a week from now on intelligent change management, and then a week from then, so 2 weeks from now, on enterprise compliance. But if you are genuinely very interested in learning more and you can't make it to those times, we are happy to set up a consultation with you where we can review a Strongpoint success plan. We'd love to have you join us in the webinars, and you can, if you haven't already, you can register on our blog. And sorry, the website is just right here, so strongpoint.io/blog-home, and all kinds of other great content there for you to review. But if you can't make it to those sessions, we are more than happy to set up a one-on-one meeting with you. And to do that, you can schedule it with garnet.bellick@strongpoint.io. And really the purpose of that call will just be to get a much better understanding of what your current goals and requirements are, and then we can put together a more personalized and customized demo for you. But before closing off, we do have a couple questions that were asked, so just bear with me for one moment. And so the first question is, does this impact the performance of our system? And I'm not sure, and maybe the person can chime in. I don't know if you mean during the initial install or or on an ongoing basis. So I'll kind of just answer both questions. So the install process will take 3 to 5 business days, but only about a half an hour of your time to actually kick it off. And during that period, it's built to run without impacting the performance of your system. So on an ongoing basis, the best practice from there is to have the tool refresh itself at midnight every day or something like that. And that takes very little time and, again, very little resources. So this is built to work in the background and will not impact the performance of your system, both during the implementation process as well as on an ongoing basis. Another question here. So what are some sample use cases? So that's a good question. So we see a number of different ways that this is used, but for our system documentation specifically, we talked a little bit about how you can proactively go through and understand the impact that changes might have. And so many of our customers use it during the discovery and planning phases of their development life cycle to just get a better understanding of their environment and how everything works. One that's a little bit more unique, that's also very popular, is that people use this for training. There's a lot of turnover in this space, and many of the organizations that we work with are growing very quickly and adding new people to their teams. And this is a great way to give them kind of a very high-level overview and exposure to the configuration of the system and how everything works together. And so during training, people will use our ERD tools just to navigate through and get a better understanding of what's in there. But then also for transition purposes, if somebody is going to, say, win the lottery and leave the organization, they aren't taking all of that knowledge with them. They've still got it inside their system here. So I hope that gives you a couple, just general ideas. Next question is there any functionality to track customizations and dependencies with linked apps of NetSuite, or is this purely for within NetSuite? So that's a great question. And we have recently announced a partnership with Celigo that helps give us much better line of sight to other applications or other platforms. And so, we now call this multi-platform risk management and change management. And so there are a few different ways to see that even without Celigo, where you can see that it's touching, say, another installed package, or that there's a dependent bundle that it could be touching a customization. So you can see it that way. But then with Celigo, you can even go beyond that. So we've got a customer, as an example, that is working on a number of kind of projects on websites, and they need to have an understanding of, will any change inside my NetSuite system have an impact on something on a site from an e-commerce perspective? And so we can at least flag that for you as well, that this is touching something outside of your system. And for them, it was a 5-alarm fire where a drop-down list wasn't populating because of a change that was made to NetSuite, and they needed to figure out why and how that happened. So we could have warned them ahead of time, but then we can also help them diagnose it significantly faster as well. And just doing one last quick glance. I think that's it for questions for the day. So I hope that I answered your questions properly. If not, I will scroll back up over here and I'll show you again garnet.bellick@strongpoint.io. So if there are any other questions, or if you need follow-ups, or if you'd like to set up a more customized demonstration, we're more than happy to do that, and you can contact Garnet. So to wrap up, just want to thank everybody for their time. Really appreciate it. And hopefully you can join us again for our next webinar a week from now on December 13th on intelligent change management. Thank you very much, everybody, and I hope you have a great day.